All right, today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite investing strategies. And if you understand this, you really can understand the mind of an investor because there's multiple pieces to it that play roles in other investing strategies, but this is kind of like the big picture. This is what like the ideal type of real estate strategy is. So, it's called the BRRRR strategy, right? So the B, the first part, is to buy. You need to buy a distressed property. What's a distressed property? It's a piece of junk. It's a property that needs a lot of fixing up for anybody to want to live in it. So these properties can't rent, most likely, and they won't be able to be easily sold or flipped because they need so much work. So you find one at a deep discount, and it's a good deal. And I always tell people, if you can start here and find a good deal because you know what it could be worth, you can get the money from anybody. So here's your little tip, your trick. You have no money. How do you do this? You find a great deal, and then you go to a local bank, you go to an investor, you go to private money, you get hard money loans. It doesn't matter. There's actually many ways to get the money, but they're like, wow, this is a great investment. We'll give you the money to buy it. All right, so now you've bought this property, but you can't rent it yet. You need to fix it up. So in advance, you already know what you need to do to rehab it. So you borrow that money too. And that investor or that private money loan or that bank will give you the money because they know that it's a good investment. So you've borrowed this money and you've done the process, you've rehabbed it. Well, let's say it was $50,000 to buy it. It was $50,000 to rehab it, to get it to be nice. But you did your research and you knew, hey, this house, even though it was a piece of junk, once it's fixed up, it's going to be worth $150,000. That's good. See, like that thumbs up. $150,000. That means you made $50,000 of equity, or you found it. More realistically, you actually found a good deal here. That's really where it starts. But now you have this property that's worth $150,000. It's rehabbed. Now you can rent it and start collecting rent, right? That's cool. You're still paying the interest on this money, but this was borrowed money. And because of the type of money this is, usually it's kind of a higher interest rate. So how do you pay these guys back? Well, you go to a small bank or a lender that does this, and you ask for a cash out refinance. If you've never heard of a cash out refinance, it's this really crazy thing where the bank or the lender pays you. So in the eyes of the lender, you've got this house that's worth $150,000. And you say, hey, I own this property that's worth $150,000. If I give you basically the right to slowly sell it back to me, would you want to do that? Would you cut me a check? And they say, man, that's a great asset. Of course. So they will lend up to 80% of that value. So $120,000. They're like, hey, here's $120,000 for us to slowly sell it back to you. And you're like, great. So what do? You pay this money back, right? And then you actually keep $20,000 in that transaction. There's some other costs in there. And then along the way, you're still collecting rent every month. You're still making money. And your rent should be able to easily cover your mortgage payments to this guy and your expenses, your utilities, things like that, your taxes and your insurance, and then still be making you money left over. So what happened in this transaction? You still have a loan, right? You have a $120,000 loan, but you're making cash flow every month that covers your mortgage, your insurance, your taxes, your other expenses, and you're still making money on top of that. You got to borrow other people's money to do it. You paid them all back. You even made some money, and you now also have equity in this house. Remember when you did a cash out refinance, they would only cash out up to 80%, right? So if they're cashing out up to 80%, that means 20% of the equity is still yours. 20% is $30,000 in this equation. So you now have an asset you control. You have $30,000 of equity in that asset. Here's your little home, right? You're now cash flowing on a month-to-month basis. The renter is paying down your mortgage for you. You get tax deductions and you get the appreciation. So you just acquired this for no money down. And guess what? You could do this over and over. I tell this to people sometimes and they're like, well, this is dumb. Like, if this was this easy, why don't people just do this all day over and over and over? And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. That's kind of what we're trying to do here. So there are some things that are learning curves, and there are some things like people you need to know and how to do things, and enough barriers that it's uncomfortable for people to try it. But anybody can do this. It's not that hard. The biggest key, the hardest part is this: making sure you can evaluate and find a good deal and know approximately what it would probably be worth if you fixed it up to what you're going to fix it up with. That helps you know you found a good deal. If you could do this part right, you can do this over and over and over and just start stacking properties. So I've done this many, many times. This is my favorite strategy. There are many people who do this and stack hundreds of properties at a time, because you could just keep using more and more of other people's money and just keep churning it out. So hopefully that's helpful in understanding the BRRRR method. This is, again, probably one of the most common and easiest ways to invest in real estate with other people's money.